Yes, y'all. Welcome to another episode of the Board. Coming to you live from the Shop Studios. Down a little bit. That's not as always, but as usual, per the usual. We have Rock Beats on the track tonight. This one's called Underwater Telephone. I can't remember if I've had this before. Underwater Telephone. That's the name of this track. There we go. Track number 205 on Beat Tape side M&N. Oh, excuse me, M and N. Available on Bandcamp. In the description. All right, let me turn this camera on and let's get to it. So Wokey. Come on, where's my camera? All right, so I don't even know what that means. I guess it's just a poke fun of all this woke stuff, whatever that's supposed to be. I don't even know. I find that I know less and less. I tell you what, I feel like I'm gonna look. I hope that I look on this time in my life 20 years from now, like I look on my life 20 years back, because I'm sort of an old guy by now. But if I think about myself as like, look, I'm gonna be 42 in February, so it's coming up, and if I think about myself like at 22 or something, man, what an infant, sort of. You know what I mean? I mean, not obviously not literal infant, but yeah, I'm hoping that 20 years from now, I look at myself with some similar, I guess, sense of enlightenment. I don't know, maybe not. I'm sure there's a bad catch to that, but I don't know. Whatever. I just feel like it has to signal growth. I feel like I've grown quite a bit, and even in the last I don't know, year, even last few months. I mean, shit, last few days, man, crazy stuff. Running into crazy people. Have you ever had a situation where you just run into crazy people for a chunk of time in your life? I've been meeting people, when I was a kid, I heard the adage or the old story about the goose who laid golden eggs. And I'm sure some of you folks, some of the three very unique folks and the one very unique folk out there on YouTube and Facebook, respectively, got 4 people. Welcome. What was I going to say? Superfan Chris, what's up? Yo, Superfan Chris. Hey, what's up? I can't see who's joining. Some folks joining on Facebook. What's up? You can comment live on the chat stream, so please do. We're talking about, I don't know, the title of the episode tonight is Wokey. You take that how you want to take it. I think there's a lot of quote unquote woke shit going on that is totally sleep. You know what I'm saying? It's like lions being led by sheep on purpose, and that is I don't know if that's necessarily the point of discussion for tonight. Let's throw that out there in the universe, and then at the same time, you guys tell me what's on your mind. Throw it in a live chat, and say what's up. All right, what was I gonna say? Yeah, just running into crazy people. Stuff like, Dale's on. What's up? Yeah, so Dale is asking if it's on the Facebookery as well, and yes, indeed, I simulcast on Facebook and on YouTube. I have a larger Facebook audience than YouTube. However, oh man, I should probably put the YouTube link. Hold on. I don't know. Anyway, I should put the YouTube link in the description. But yeah, I simulcast it just to get some more not airplay, but just to get some more folks in on the discussion. Because the more people that are involved, the more, I don't know, the more entertaining I believe the whole thing. So yeah, But the thing with Facebook folks, they just really come in, they tap in, tap out. They're like real quick. YouTube folks, like we got one person just joined on Facebook. I don't know. I think there's a delay. So I think the Facebook people are like on and I don't know it. And then it shows that they're on and then they're not. I don't know. Whatever. What's up, Facebook people? Say hi. I don't get updates on as to who exactly you are, even though normal people probably do. My computer's about to die. By the way, if you want to support the Boyd and the efforts for us to have fellowship of truth, please take a look at your computer inventory if you have any extra computers that I can live stream both Facebook and YouTube. Send them my way. I can give you the address, PM me, because this is about, I think I'm running Windows 7, which is officially out of support. This computer's making weird noises. It has choked on me before mid-show. Just letting you know. So I'm sorry to get the beg for money out of the way. Patreon link in the description. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, crazy people. So back in the day, some of you guys probably are familiar with the tale of the goose who laid golden, or the hen who laid golden eggs. The goose, I think it's a goose. Goose who lays golden eggs. And, in the whole story, they got this, if you're not familiar with the story, right? There's a farmer, has a goose, finds a golden egg under the goose. Like, oh my God, it's like solid gold. Oh my God, how much is this worth? It's like 12 grand. Oh, geez, let's go, spend it. And then the goose takes like, I don't know, it takes like a month to lay this other egg. You know what I mean? And so I don't know how often geese lay their eggs, but let's just say it's taken a whole month to lay this next golden egg, right? Because it's got to amass a lot of a lot of gold out of the feed. And I'm sure the feed isn't like laced with gold dust, right? So it's somehow got to create these gold molecules or whatever. Anyway, so it's creating gold eggs, and they don't want to wait a whole month. So someone gets this bright idea. If you cut open the goose, there must be full of golden eggs forever. That's where they're coming from, right? Obviously not knowing about real geese anatomy, let alone the anatomy required to convert solid gold eggs, right? And Dale says, kill that capitalist. Actually, I don't know if the goose was capitalist. The system by which it died was capitalist, but maybe the goose wasn't. The goose was giving of its own free will to the collective, really, at the end of the day, with no profit for itself. I mean, I guess in a roundabout way, maybe. I don't know. I think this metaphor sort of breaks down somewhere along the line. Anyway, we're not looking at the goose so much as the point here, other than this person who's cutting open the goose to try to reveal supposed hidden golden eggs. And I thought that was the dumbest, most asinine idea. Why would anyone do that? That's so stupid. Even if you could try to get a extra egg, why would you do that if you could keep like an ongoing residual egg like laying source of revenue? Why would you do that? I mean, geese only live so long anyway, like I was thinking this as a kid, right? So I never really thought about it much, that whole story, other than how stupid it was, right? That nobody would make that decision. That's just dumb. And I've ran into multiple people in a row that would squander potential massive amounts of money in order to make a quick buck, like right now. Like someone who would like make $3 grand today instead of waiting 3 months to make 300,000. Right? They would rather just make the 3 G's today because they know they'll make it today. But if they just found a way to wait a little bit longer, right? Just scrounge, find a way, you get 300,000, right? And some folks will just kill the golden goose instead for that now money. And maybe it's because they are conditioned, I don't know, whatever. But to me, it's like it's hard to think in those terms when I can't think in those terms. I can't be like, I'm more of a long-term kind of like, I'll take a leap of faith, put an investment in, blah, blah. I know it takes takes money to make money, yada yada, all the cliches, blah blah blah. Right, so I'm familiar with that. But some people like they will kill the golden goose. So just as soon look inside, see what kind of guts is required to create golden eggs, and then just kill the egg layer thing. Just kill it dead. Any of you guys run into a situation where someone would do something so silly? I don't know. So Dale says, would you take the upfront lottery payout or the monthly payments? I mean, I would take probably the monthly payments, because I'm assuming the total amount is much lower when you take the single pay instead of the annuitized payout. Typically, here's the thing though, how solvent is the city by which that you're running the lottery? I have heard of some cities actually backing out of paying. Like someone wins the lottery and they never pay that. They never paid it. So that does make you to some degree, make it sort of more risky, with basically political risk, if we want to get into financial terms, political risk of your lottery payout in the annuitized settlement. So I don't know, or payout, not really settlement, but payout. So Superfan Chris said, I'd take the upfront payout. I've always been the monthly payment type of guy, but have become wiser about it. So there you go. Time value, but it's also time value of money. I was thinking about that. You do have time value money to think about as well. However, depends on, I don't know. It depends on what the terms of the annuitized payout are, over how long, things like that. Because it could be much more beneficial to take the upfront payment because of time value of money if you have a good investment strategy, and also because you can actually work with that capital upfront rather than take sort of a small piecemeal amount. But it depends on, I guess, what you have floating around in your world too. So yeah, let's see what's going on. Kate, what's up? Superfan Kate's on board. She would definitely take the upfront payout. There you go. So yeah, there you go. I mean, in the scheme of lottery winnings, perhaps it is a better choice to take that upfront payout. But I don't know. Yes, in fact, we should just kill the goose. Dale Lynn says, plus, if you die, your kids don't get the monthly payment. Indeed. Well, yeah. Then there's a lot of risk involved with lottery annuitized payouts. Then there's definitely you have to weigh those factors. So after those factors have been weighed, then maybe the total, even if it's larger with the annuitized payout, because if you're factoring in political risk, also the what do you call it? Whatever actuarial risk there is to your life regarding your life choices and or basically the likelihood you'll die soon. That all comes into play. So there you go. So maybe the lottery thing is a bad example of killing the goose. But anyway, you guys get what I'm saying. So maybe the $3,000 up front is the better way to do it. I guess it just depends on your point of view. It's like when you're building a business. I mean, you could just squander any money you had saved to build the business and then just keep working forever, or you put off this upfront money for sort of a plan for future payouts. You know what I mean? So it just depends on where you are and what your strategy is. But something that I think you can sort of note in the grand scheme of things, if you do win the lottery, remember that remember that if your life sucks at some point after winning the lottery, then there was already a problem with your life. You probably just sprinkled money on top of it. There was a show, I think, like the lottery ruined my life or some stupid title like that. And I'm just thinking, like, I think it's less that money changes people and more that money reveals people. When people don't feel like they need to front for the money or front, you know, as if they have the money, then their true selves get revealed. So sometimes people are not that great, and then you just sprinkle money on top, and then it's just like it's like rolling a piece of poop in sugar, right? All right. So Dale Lynn says maybe we don't kill workers. Well, let's try not to kill workers. There was a time, whoa, dying coal miner. If you have never heard that by Woody Guthrie, that is an interesting song. Let me see. Maybe I'll find that while we read through some of these live chats. All right. Don't kill workers unless we can eat them. Well, I mean, that becomes sort of a, I don't know. That's definitely a business decision that you will have to work out with your HR department. Superfan Chris says, use a portion of the lotto money, build a real estate portfolio, use that as your monthly payout. Now you get the best of both worlds. There you go. There's a lot of strategies that you can employ to do those kinds of things. Plus, you get to pay all those taxes, and the government is always a good investment. Yeah, see, that's another thing about taking the upfront cash, because now you are potentially exposing yourself to liability, larger tax liability, all at one time. So now that upfront actually drops even further. And remember, if you have an annuitized payout from a reputable, hopefully a decently high credit rating city or organization that's running said lotto, you can actually take that statement of income to a bank or somebody as some type of collateral for a loan. So there's strategy to this, right? So you could get some upfront money off. You could pull forward upfront money out of this annuitized settlement if you had a decent plan for it. Hold on one second. Let me see here. What was I going to say? All right. So let's see what other stuff we got. So real estate, golden geese, workers equal to golden geese. Yeah, I mean, is that, do you know the story behind that? Does it have to do with the labor struggle, Dale? Or I always thought it was just like, don't be selfish and have too much. I don't know, like, don't be impatient. Hold on one second. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the origin story is about that, but yeah, about killing the workers. I always thought the moral of the Golden Goose reminds us not to abuse, destroy our relationship for the quick kill. Yeah, no doubt. I think that something like that as well. You know, it has to, like, it. I just don't. I mean, I don't know how. There has to be something to someone wanting to open up the goose and see what's inside. Like there was more eggs in there. But you're right. We should not squander our workers. In fact, Woody Guthrie sang a song about that long ago. Let me see if I can cue that up. Let's see. Probably get in trouble. I don't even know if it's gonna play. Let's see here.
It's caught fire from somebody's lamp in the mine.
Here it is. So we'll talk about a little bit about those geese, if that's the case.
It happened an hour ago, way down in this tunnel of coal. The gas caught fire from somebody's lamp, and the miners are choking in smoke.
There you go. Woody Guthrie.
Goodbye to Dickie and Honey.
This land is your
Goodbye
land.
to the wife that I love. A lot of these men not coming home tonight when the work whistle blows. Dear sisters and brothers, goodbye. Dear mother and father, goodbye. My fingers are weak and I cannot write. Goodbye, Centralia, goodbye. It looks like the end for me and all of my buddies I see. We're all writing letters to children we love. Please carry our word to our wives. We found a little place in the air, crawled and drug ourselves here. But the smoke is bad and the fumes coming in, and the gas is burning my eyes. Dear sister and brothers, goodbye. Dear mother and father, goodbye. My fingers are weak and I cannot write. Goodbye, Centralia, goodbye.
I think Centralia is the city, the town. Which
forgive me for the things I've done wrong. I love you lots more than you know. When the night whistle blows and I don't come home, do all that you can to help Mom. I can hear the moans and groans, more than 100 good men. Just work and fight and try to see that this never happens again. Dear sisters and brothers, goodbye. Dear mother, goodbye. My fingers are weak and I cannot write. Goodbye, Centralia, goodbye. My eyes are blinded with fumes.
I don't know, Alice.
But it sounds like the men are all gone, except Joe Valentini, Fred Gutzler, and Joy, trapped down in this hellhole of fire. Please name our new Joe, so he'll grow up like Big Joe. He'll work and he'll fight and he'll fix up the mines, so fire can't kill Daddy no more. Dear sisters and brothers, goodbye. Dear mother and father, goodbye. My fingers are weak and I cannot write. Goodbye, Centralia, goodbye.
There you go. All right, there you go. A little Woody Guthrie, Song of the Dying Coal Miner. Sorry I talked through it, but we'll see. Superfan Chris says, oh wait, let's see. Yes. His boy was also a hippie folk singer. Oh, his name. He's the Alice's Restaurant guy. Maybe I know what, I think, is that the name of the song? I think Arlo Guthrie with his son. I think that's the son, is Arlo Guthrie. Woody Guthrie is this guy, is a Woody Guthrie with the This Land Is Your Land, and the song of the Dying Coal Miner, which we just heard. Yeah, Superfan Chris says this song speaks volumes. Absolutely. Because I mean, you can hear what he's saying. I mean, he's that last verse where he's telling tell little Joe, raise little Joe to grow up like Big Joe, and it doesn't even rhyme right. It's just like, it doesn't matter. It's like, tell little Joe to grow up like Big Joe, and he'll fight and he'll something, and he'll make make sure that Daddy doesn't die, and this doesn't happen to Daddy no more, and stuff like that. And this guy's dying and he can't write anymore. His fingers are weak, and da da da. It's a crazy notion. I mean, in the fact that there's a guy singing about what's happening in those coal mines. These guys are working for a living. They have no other choice. If they decide they didn't want to work, what's going to happen? And they're just trying to eke their way, their existence on this earth. And they are in a position where something that can possibly cost their lives is worth spending that time away from their family in order to survive. I mean, talk about killing the golden goose, right? And that was totally fine to kill, because you could always replace those golden geese, is the thing. And that's something you got to remember about the current system that we're in. This is the kind of stuff that we're going to revert back to as workers' rights start getting eroded and stripped away. Man, even freaking Mike Rowe, that jerk. He's and there's a reason why I call him that, because his charlatan ass is running around telling people, well, don't chase your dream. Don't bring your passion with you. You don't want to run your dad's pig farm. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Just bring your passion with you. Motherfucker. You decided to be an actor, and guess what you're doing? You're acting. You followed your passion. You don't do those damn jobs telling other people, then don't follow your passion, whatever. I'm pretty sure it's Koch brothers. There was an expose, actually, Citations Needed, did a whole micro episode, traced all the money from his foundations and anything that he got paid for, and it all came back to Koch brother money. Why? Why would it be Koch brother money? Okay, let me tell you why. Because he also has a campaign that's like called Safety Third, right? Yeah, Safety Third. Believe it or not, it's legit. He has that. You can look it up. I think it's either Safety Second or Safety Third. I think it's Safety Third. It's like you should pay attention to yourself because you're an adult. And number two, other people should pay attention to themselves because they're an adult. And number three, you should practice safety rules or some shit. I mean, this is real stuff. Go look it up. And why is that? Because it's an effort to create a notion that workers' rights are bad for business and that you should take responsibility to make sure you don't die in the coal mine, and it's your fault if you do, right? Basically is what they're trying to do. Dale says, it's easy to make fun of hippies today, but don't forget Rockefeller had no trouble slaughtering golden geese. Absolutely. We forget the Gilded Age. We forget that in the time of monopoly capitalists, they could literally call the National Guard on striking workers, and people died because they were on strike, like by the government, right? So that wasn't socialists coming and causing that. That wasn't communists taking over the government and shooting up our brothers and sisters from yesteryear. No, that was a bunch of capitalist monopolists who paid off, who basically had the reins of the government. So you could actually get the actual National Guard to come shoot at striking workers, and they did that a number of times. So yeah, I mean, we got a crazy thing that we've perpetuated. So yeah, no slavery, but basically you've got another situation. And remember, you can even do this. You could test this out for yourself. You can go to a libertarian website or some kind of libertarian page or uber capitalist page, and you can talk about, wage slavery versus chattel slavery and blah, blah. Anyway, they'll always talk about how the Civil War wasn't fought for slavery and blah, blah. I'm like, okay, fine. What was it fought about? Oh, states' rights and this and that. And it was like, okay, so why is slavery in all the Declaration of Cessation, number one? But okay, besides the point. And what they'll argue is that slavery actually is less cost efficient than regular wage slavery. Well, why is that? Well, because remember, to get a return on investment for a chattel slave that you bought, that you upfront cashed, right? Time up, value of money, blah, blah, all that you got to factor in. I just put all this money in. I need to seek return on investment. I have to protect my investment, meaning I have to feed, clothe, provide health care, all of these things for this chattel slave because I own it. And because I own this person, in order to get a return on investment, I'm going to have to keep them alive, right, to some degree, to at least a decent degree to get the return. Whereas if I have a wage slave and I'm simply renting the thing, right, the person, but we can practically treat them as commodity at this point. It's like, well, when you rent a car, I mean, some people take really good care of the rental car because they don't want to get in trouble, but some people don't really care. So I've even had uber libertarian capitalists tell me that yeah, wage slaves are, well, they don't use the term wage slaves, they call it freedom. um, that the wage slaves are much less expensive because, of course, you don't have upfront costs of purchase, and so therefore you don't have any vested interest in ensuring the continued quality of existence of life for that person that you're renting, right? So when they eventually die because their wages aren't enough to pay for them to live, including healthcare and food, etc., they can simply let them die at very little expense to the business, and then simply replace them with another person equally as desperate, hopefully more desperate, because your pay is always going to be what, inversely proportionate to your level of desperation. I'm just saying what existed and currently exists in this world now. So it's not like an ideological penchant thing or like thing I'm trying to push. I'm just trying to say what exists in the world as it is. Now, if you don't believe me, please, let's see what's up. All right. So, Michael, what is up? Welcome to the show, Michael. Michael Weingardner says very few have. Oh, wait, hold on. It's shocking how many people don't know about the Gilded Age. It's even more shocking how many people I've met that do know about it, know exactly what happened, and still think it was fine. Very interesting. Very few have ever been exposed to the concept of wage slavery. I've tried to explain the reality of it, and they just stare at me. There's something about communism, then something about communism/socialism. That's 100% true. And Michael, well, welcome, comrade. Yes, there is. It'll turn in. It'll devolve into tropes about communism and socialism. Basically, we've gone. I mean, Frederick Douglass pointed this out back. I mean, he was a guy that was a chattel slave, freed, and then entered into the world of wage slavery. And why is it wage slavery? Why is it not? Because listen to what the capitalist, the libertarian capitalist will. And remember, in order to be a capitalist, you have to be in control of capital, meaning assets or working capital that other people have to depend on in order to generate profit for you. So if you're not in that position, then you're not a capitalist. You're just a capitalist cheerleader. You're a fanboy, whatever you want to call it, a sycophant, if you want to get nerdy about it. That's like lapdog. I mean, what other diminutive kind of like whatever terms? I mean, that's what you are. If you don't actually own the means of production, then, or the resources therein, right, then you're not really a capitalist. You're a laborer, and you're just basically a trader to other laborers, pretty much. But why is it wage slavery? Why can't you just say, well, that's just the agreed upon wage? I mean, it's entered into a mutually binding, a mutually agreed upon contract. So that's freedom. That's free association. However, it's really not. Because if I said, you know what, fuck this system. No, I want out. Screw this system. I want out. I don't want to work at this stupid menial job. I don't want to do these stupid things. I would rather eke my existence out in the world. And I didn't even say primitivists. They could have like solar panels and all this stuff. Who's going to pay for it? I don't know. Same people that paid for the land grant colleges. Who paid for that? I don't know. You tell me. Who paid for the land grants? Same people. I don't know. Let's make that happen. If it worked once, let's make it work again. How do we do it? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Right? But there's no alternative. At the end of the day, there's no commons. There's no alternative. I can't go get a 40. I can't be granted 40 acres and a mule. Go work the land. Right? That system doesn't exist. So therefore, I don't have a choice. I have to either enter into wage slavery or use some type of resource to create my own venture or my own enterprise. The thing is, now some of these guys are like, well, you could create a business with just blah, 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 and you don't even need resources. Oh, great. Guess what everyone else that's in the same boat's going to do? That's called efficient markets theory, right? Or the idea that that the markets are efficient. Guess what? This is the other thing that libertarian capitalist cheerleaders don't understand, right? That I'm not talking about the government taking over everything, that the market should be demolished, because I think there's always going to be a market. I don't care if the government says only the government can make cars. Somebody out there, not idiot, some genius, right? Some entrepreneur out there is going to make a freaking car in their backyard, and they're going to start making cars on the black market, or they're going to take government cars and hopping them up, or they will do something, right? There will always be a market. And so market fundamentals are not something that I'm arguing against. I am talking about the relationship between capital and labor, right? That means the fact that you can't buy people and you also can't rent people. That's it. So what does that mean? That means that just like someone paying you $100 can make you partner in a company, someone giving you 10 years or 1 year, some chunk of time should also equate to some reciprocal amount of equity in the thing that they help build. That's it. Once we do that, the whole scheme of the whole mess starts moving away from whatever it is now. It starts to float away into something else, you know. But until we fundamentally look at that relationship in real terms with real eyes instead of this bullshit, that exactly what Michael's talking about, because that's what they'll give you. If you try to talk about the actual reality, it's like trying to tell people, you know, the Matrix. Everyone talks about the Matrix since it came out. It's always been this metaphor for this system that you cannot feel, that you cannot taste or touch. It is all around you, right? It's in the TV shows you watch and blah, blah, right? You know Morpheus's statement about the Matrix. That's where we are. We're in the system. You have no choice but to enter an exploitative relationship, right? You have to find a way to earn a living. So some of these guys die in coal mines to make it work. Or maybe they don't have a choice because they live near this one city or wherever, and that's where they are, but they can't go out and live out in the land. It's owned by the government and it's illegal, and they'll rustle you off. Or they can't go live over in XYZ territory because it's owned by XYZ. So now what? Well, now you have to enter into exploitation. And now whatever wage you agree to is a deflated wage based on a captive pool of people. You see what I mean? So there is no such thing as agreed upon wage unless it's agreed upon in a system by which you have a choice to escape the system. And right now that doesn't exist, right? All right. So Michael Weingartner says, exactly, man. Why don't people understand that? You can have a market and economic democracy at the same time. Amen. Thank you. Where you been? That's exactly 100% true. You can do that, offer workplace democracy. The larger the organization, the more democratic it should be. One person should not carry the fate of so many. Like, look at Sears, or excuse me, well, Sears, the whole damn thing goes apart. CEOs, all those people get golden parachutes. They get to sell assets off, whatever shit. And next thing you know, they still have some money, or they get transferred over or bought out by someone else. And all the workers get nothing, right? Now they're jobless and now entering a already deflated wage, captive labor pool, right? Look what happened to Boeing. Boeing screws up by no fault of the employees. Boeing screws up. CEO gets fired, gets like $60-something million golden parachute. 6,000 plus employees get laid off. They have no livelihood due to no fault of their own. It was all someone else that did it, right? They didn't get to make those decisions. They didn't have any democratic control, anything. They lost their jobs, right? That's not freedom. That's not, I mean, that's the American dream we hope to strive for and people died for and blah, blah. Is this kind of bullshit? Hell no. Hell no. Some of those people might have been 20-year veterans. What amount of equity do they have in 20 years? In 20 years, why don't they have democratic control of what happens? Maybe they wouldn't have picked his ass as CEO, right? That fundamental difference, that relationship needs to change, period, right? What do the owners of Boeing do? If there's 100,000 employees at Boeing, how much contribution do the actual owners make to Boeing to keep it running? If all the owners left, what would happen to Boeing? If 25% of the logistics management left, what would happen? Not even management. How about the people that run the thing? Right, left. They're actually on the ground. They just 25% left. Right? That thing would crash to the ground. Right? The labor force is integral, especially to a large organization. You couldn't have got there but without their help. So without their help, you are nothing. So you have to be able to reciprocate the time spent. Someone who spent 20 years should have 20 years worth of equity in that enterprise. They helped build it. Even if it turns into automation, as Dale said, the rise of the machines, even if the machines are coming, you have ownership in the thing. Guess what money, right? Whose labor, whose back made the money that was allowed to reinvest to create automation? It was the labor money that did that. So if they're part owner, then they can go ahead and automate all they want. Guess what? That means vacation and a dividend. That's what that means. Do it. We don't need no UBI Andrew Yang. That's like putting a Band-Aid on a cancer patient. Nothing. Yeah, you got brain cancer. Here you go. Band-Aid on your head. Do you feel better? No, $1,000 a month ain't shit. You have not addressed capital and labor relations, period. That's the next revolution. Either soft revolution through taxation and favoritism towards cooperatives versus hierarchical corporations. If we institute a phase-in legislative transfer of culture, it's really a cultural issue. We made the cultural leap from you can buy and own a human to you can rent and captively somewhat own. You can group share, rent a human to you can partner with a human. Right? Let's say you found a job and you stuck with it 10 years, you did a pretty good job. Maybe you want to get out. Now you got 10 years worth of equity. I can push that out into the market, right? You can still have a stock market. You could still have all of the same stuff. In fact, who am I going to sell my shares to? So I could sell it back to the company. I could sell it to other people in the marketplace. Boom, now I got a capital infusion. Now I can maybe ride on that for a while and just chill out. Or maybe I could start my photo business. Maybe I could start my business. Maybe I could do my thing. All the things that people told me I couldn't do. Right? How long is 10 years? It's a while. But in the grand scheme of things, think about some of you guys are pretty, pretty young. 10 years might dump you right into your childhood, right? Some of you are in your adulthood. And if you went 10 years back, that's really feels like it's not that long ago. Hell, 10 years ago, 2010 was 10 years ago, 2010. So think about that. It might not feel like it was that long ago. So imagine if you now had this amount of equity. Now, some people say, well, you could work at a place that has employee stock purchase plan. Well, yeah, you can. However, not all places offer that. And second of all, well, first of all, you are also having to purchase those shares with a wage that's already deflated by having a captive workforce. So that's already, should not come out of your normal compensation. You should just simply get it as a function of time, period. Now, well, no, you could probably buy If you want to contribute your own money to help buy into the company, I think that should be allowed too. Yeah, sure. It makes sense. If it all makes mathematical sense, let's do it. It makes mathematical sense to partner with your workers just as much as it does to make sense of partnering with shareholders and people with money. It's just we honor the money more than we honor the labor time. That's it. It's just a cultural shift. Just like we honor people's freedom to not be owned by another human. We have not honored the idea that we can exist on this earth without having to rent ourselves out, that we can work towards ownership of the thing that we're laboring towards, that we're helping. And that the profits reaped therein should have, the workers should have some say. So Boeing, if they have 100,000 workers and very few owners, the workers, if they're owners, they should have a say in how the profits are distributed, right? So you still have your accounting department and whatever, and to say you should have XYZ profits. That amount of money, that actual dollar amount doesn't change. The enterprise hasn't changed. So that dollar amount doesn't change. It's just who does it go to? That changes, right? That's the fundamental change. All right, Superfan Chris says, it's so hard for people to grasp that concept because of what we have always been taught. A paradigm shift is necessary. Absolutely. So one thing that you can start with right now, support whatever cooperative you find the best you can. Start whatever cooperative you can. Your dream should be less. If you don't care about making riches, don't make riches. Okay, fine. But what you should do is create an enterprise by which you can create cooperative enterprises. For instance, if you start a store, start it as a cooperative. There's still a way for you to have ownership, and there's still a way for you to make money off of that. But make a vector by which your employees can have ownership someday. If you get an employee that's there for 10 years, I would hope that by after 10 years, you know whether or not they'd be a good partner in business with you, as far as not running the business per se, but having ownership. If you someday sold the business off, maybe they should be able to reap some benefit and say, you know what, I don't want to work for this new person. No, I'm going to take my share and I'm going to go start my own business, or I'm going to do something else because I'm part owner. And guess why you got that money that you got? It wasn't because of your work. It was because of my work, right? It's a partnership. That's all. It's not saying one is more important than the other. Right now, we say the money person is more important than the worker. And there's people that will fight and die to honor that. And I'm saying, no. The money person needs the worker person. You can buy as much equipment as you want. If you're not working the damn equipment yourself, then how's it going to make you money? It's not. It's a partnership. Without the money to buy the equipment, you have no equipment. Without the workers to work the equipment, you might as well not have the equipment. You could just go sell the asset, right? Now you're back to square one. So you really have nothing, right? So it's a partnership. That's all anyone's ever said, right? But someone will take that message and run with it. We've lived through, I mean, who is it? Not W.B. Du Bois. Eugene Debs. I think it was in the 30s. Eugene V. Debs went on trial for being a socialist and an avowed communist, actually. And he's rustled up and gone, thrown into jail. People don't want to be subject to that. You've had that kind of thing happening since before World War II. Why? Because the capitalists know that once it hits, once the idea, the notion that basically what they're trying to do is push the idea that you can rent human beings, right? Once you start putting it in those terms and putting it in the light that it really is, then suddenly there's a threat happening, right? So speaking like this, like me saying these words out loud in a public setting could cause some problems. It would cause a major triggering. I guarantee it. Major triggering. And there would be people yelling and screaming and acting really weird, and we wouldn't be able to have a real conversation about this stuff just because of conditioning, cultural conditioning to make it so that we can't talk about this stuff, right? As soon as I say something about capitalism, as soon as I say something about anything having to do with critique of the current paradigm, there is a self-defense mechanism that's been put together by common culture and you know, the media complex that we're living in. So all right, so Dale says, I see from the comments this is not a capitalism collectivism conversation. I've missed the nuance. EL has this conversation not turned into free markets versus collectivism rant? Who's this? EL. So it's not really about collectivism versus explain like I'm five. I see from the collectivism versus so what the nuance is, it's not there's different types of I guess collectivism, you could say. So there's something like vanguard socialism or vanguard communism, I guess you could say, when you have this vanguard party, meaning elitist party apparatus through the government. If you have something like that and it's exploiting the people, then now you have entered into what will sound like an oxymoron. And this is the thing. This is I thank you very much, Dale, for explaining ELI 5. Okay, yeah. Explain like I'm 5, ELI 5. Yeah, so this is sort of a tricky concept to have with a 5-year-old, I guess, because they haven't been expected to enter into an exploitative relationship, I don't believe. That's where it becomes tricky, because this is where the breakdown sometimes happens, because this is a complex situation. I mean, Karl Marx wrote 4 freaking volumes. Well, both him and Friedrich Engels, they wrote a 4-volume critique on capitalism. It was just an analysis of capitalism and what it does to the society, what it does to the individual. A lot of the ails that we see through society today, you would say, you know, I guarantee Marx would look at and say that these are predictions come true regarding the contradictions of capital, regarding the contradictions of capitalism itself. It's not about collectivism in that we all own everything and the tropes that have been made. It's not that at all. It is about labor and capital relations. And that's really the core issue. It's obscured by this capitalism / collectivism conversation. It's almost done on purpose. So you have smart people like Milton Friedman, for instance. They're making books called, like back in the day, he wrote a book called something free to choose. And it was a sort of a contrapoint to the Soviet or Chinese sort of state-run type of central planning type of situation that they had in those other countries. And I would say, yeah, and even Milton Friedman believed in UBI, and I think too, because that is a sort of a straw peg, as it were. So meaning that it's not really solid; it's just another prop in the welfare state to maintain capitalism. I think if we were to sit down and talk about it, I think that he would if it wasn't UBI, he would probably be okay with, and you didn't really see a burgeoning, you know, you see like stuff like the off-grid movement, the the homesteaders, the people that want to move away from the they want to get off grid. They want to eke their living out into the world and whatever. They don't want to play the game and work for the man and whatever. They just don't want to do that. And so I think if presented with a true free market situation, even Milton Friedman would have to admit that the labor market is not free. So thusly cannot be trusted to produce a valid wage within a wage slavery system. Slavery, again, being that you have no choice but to enter into the wage work. Without resources, you cannot create your own business. And even the business that you can create, it can be created by all others. So therefore, how can you compete in an efficient market if supply and demand is constantly reaching equilibrium and all arbitrage is killed at every opportunity possible per efficient markets theory? You see what I mean? So all of those libertarian, even Milton Friedman, all of those libertarian points are paper tigers. They're these big, lofty, fake, empty words that mean nothing in material reality, and they've been used time and time again to dupe the American public. Milton Friedman was flaunted around in the Reagan era as this sort of genius with his nothingness. I've read the book; it's full of nothing. It talks about the greatness of a market. Great. So did I. I just got through lauding the indelible nature of the marketplace, right? So his points are really straw men, meaning he's creating a scarecrow for him to punch out. You see, because the market can remain intact. We need to look at labor and capital relations. It's purposeful, in my opinion. It's purposeful that he pushes the conversation in that direction because he does not want to reveal the truth of what's really happening. He wants to create a straw man argument and have people chasing this red herring because there are flaws in the market system, right? But those can be addressed with more democratic control of the workplace through workers and through the change in the relationship between labor and people with money. Once people have a method by which they don't have to rely on work to live. You see what I mean? So if you have a nest egg or a chunk of capital from your, 20 years working at some place, and now you can sit on your butt and do something, whatever you want to do. There's some people, I just read an article about a guy who makes canes out of old Christmas trees. He takes old Christmas trees, got a whole stack of them, they're all over the place for free. Gets these old Christmas trees, he makes canes for injured veterans. They're all free. And he just sits there and makes canes. So if there was a guy that just had all this money because he just got through leaving a cooperative and sold off his shares and has a bunch of money, or is sitting in an apartment and everything's paid for or whatever, and now is living off dividend income from the enterprise that he just left, and maybe for the next 10 years, diminishing over time, we can get into that later, he's getting a dividend that's coming or she's getting a dividend, they are getting a dividend every quarter. So now maybe they're sitting there making canes, doing free whatever, fixing people's plumbing for free because he just doesn't care. That's fine. I don't need the money. I just whatever. I'll go do it. Now the plumbers are going to have to compete with people doing free shit, right? And now the way that money and people's time and things start changing in society, and it's hard to predict. I don't know what's going to happen. Let's try it, right? I don't know. Let's try it. And I would say whatever you think is going to happen, I don't believe you. Until we try it, I don't believe you. You can keep talking. I don't give a shit. I'm not listening. Until we try it, your words mean nothing because I have not seen it done. Until you can show me an exact place where workers are guaranteed equity in the enterprises they help build and democratic control of workplaces, I don't want to hear about it because if it doesn't exist, then it doesn't exist. I mean, if it doesn't exist, I don't want to hear about future problems right? Because that's all we ever hear all the time about this. Oh, if you do this, well, then this is going to happen. Like, no, we hear that kind of stuff all the time, and that's what gets us into trouble. Okay, so Dale been blowing up the live chat. What's up, Dale? Sorry, I've been ignoring you here. Even Milton Friedman, UBI. Okay, Dale Lynn says, okay, but as a former restaurant owner, I can say there's no such thing as a free owner of business either. Yes, right. But that's under the current paradigm, right? Remember, you're creating this business in a situation whereby you don't necessarily have that windfall capital that you would have in the system that I described. But let's go on with Dale's comments here. This is awesome. Having owned and managed a sales support system for small local businesses from contractors and mortgage brokers, I don't see where capital owners are in a superior position. Quote, don't have to rely on work to live. Contractors such as plumbers who compete with people who do free shit is destroying Detroit. Contractors is destroying Detroit. Well, I think there's a lot of things destroying Detroit. I think one of the things that was the first impetus to destroying Detroit was the movement of the capital from Detroit, from Michigan, to offshore work centers, right? Why? Because labor standards were lower and because of favorable exchange rates. But the labor force didn't move along with that, right? So capital moved, but labor stayed. And so because there is not the same fluidity of capital, right? That's where the major problem is, right? So the plumbers that are causing if there's any kind of issues between plumbers and people who do free shit destroying Detroit, is because Detroit's already destroyed by the system that was already predicted to destroy it. And it is doing exactly what was predicted. I mean, Adam Smith predicted it back in 1776. I mean, our country was founded on the day that the father, quote unquote, father of capitalism, basically warned the capitalists that this kind of stuff was about to happen. Well, will happen if you don't watch out. Unions were a stopgap to this, right? Now, Dale, yeah, I think that there are some sort of there's a let me see. There's sort of I'm feeling a hint of like I'm being too hard on the business owners, which I am to some degree, especially the petty bourgeoisie, as Marx would refer to them. These are your smaller capitalists. So instead of running Tyson Foods, you're running the law firm that represents them. Or instead of running Tyson Foods itself, you are, I don't know, you run a little something. I don't know, something that they hire to do, I don't know, do their flowers that for their office locations, right? And you run that small business. Yeah, you're like petty bourgeoisie. And so you rely on the capitalist system, but you might be a single person, you know, maybe one or two employees, sole proprietor, small business. You know, how can you be so hard on me? I have sleepless nights. I mortgage my house. That is true. All of that's true. And they should be honored. Don't get me wrong. My problem is, look, the more that you rely on labor to grow your business, the more that that labor should be in a partnership position with you over time, not immediately, but over time. And so, you know, these demands, quote unquote, demands aren't really that crazy. But it is a cultural shift that does sort of hurt some folks because of a lot of conditioning, I think. And I went through it myself. And, you know, the most ironic conditioning is when we get a lot of conditioning coming from former military who have escaped the system of exploitation, as it were, and the fight over the wage, et cetera, to go join a collectively funded organization that everyone pitches in and just sort of pays for it, you know. I think that's the biggest irony, but whatever. All right, let's see what else we got here. Michael says, it's difficult when it's so baked in. It's all part of that Horatio Alger myth. It's also connected to the Protestant work ethic and all that. Don't have to be religious or well read to pick it up. Interesting. Dale Lynn, but the point I'm making is your complaints against quote unquote slave labor and the monopolist quote unquote only happens at the macro level. It doesn't happen at the street level where we can see it work. I think it is happening at the street level. We just see things operating outside the bounds of, well, let's take that back. There was a time when there was more of a sort of rigid framework between labor and capital. Now things are much more fluid, I guess you could say. But look at also the precarity. And I think, Dale, you are very close to how precarious the system is and how close people can come to basically being in a position where they have very little to get back into the system, and they have no legal right to exist. Like, they can't exist on government land. They can't exist in city land. They can't exist in private land. So there's not really a place that they exist in this contemporary society legally. You see what I mean? So that is the everyday on the street level that we can see it. It's not just, that is part of the macro level, is we can see it. We see it in the dying coal miner the same way as we see it in the homeless guy that just had it was just one paycheck away from securing his house, but just things fell through and then he couldn't make it to work, and then blah, blah. Next thing you know, he's on the streets, right? And the system, quote unquote, the system itself creates no solution. The only solution comes from collective works through the government or through charitable organizations. The money system, the capitalist system itself does not actually create solutions for that. And that's just something we have to look at with open eyes. I'm not trying to, it's with an observation of what's happening, not so much a defense of one system versus another. Notice that I'm not speaking in absolute terms or even speaking absolutely towards Marxian analysis per se, right? I don't think that that's necessarily the point either, because I don't want to we don't need to get into the pedantics of what these sort of, let's face it, ancient philosopher economists are thinking about. Things are different now. Shit's done changed. You know what I mean? Technology's changed, people's attitudes change, the society's changed, a lot of things have changed. So if we are to be students of the butterfly effect, meaning that we are going to take into chaos theory and the fact that little tiny changes can amount to major differences in the future, we have to know that our contemporary being so vastly different than those commenting in their contemporary about macro level systems, that what they say has to be looked at in a macro level, and know that the nuance of the contemporary can make a major difference, even though that is just a slight nuance. All right, so we got some folks on Facebook. Thank goodness we got some new folks. It's coming through. A lot of times on Facebook, doesn't seem to get any commentary through. This probably is old, but we'll see. All right, let's see what Brock Norris, thank you for joining on Facebook. Our YouTube fans have been busily chatting away. So Brock says, expanding on one source of self-sufficiency could lead to a stream of revenue, or with a large enough movement could lead to nearly barter-dependent economy. Exactly. So if there was such a way to to exist in this world without having to spend every moment of your life chasing after it, then who knows how that could change things, right? A change in a government level is so hard to create rather than creating a movement that government cannot ignore is far more attainable within terms of a generation. I tend to agree with Brock, but how do you do it? So I'll tell you how. It's not that, okay, this isn't exactly how, but let's just, if I'm going to pull a plan out of my buttocks, why not? Best place to come up with a plan, right? From within. Here we go. So what do? Well, if you do create a business, transition at some point, the bigger it gets, right? Make some money, do whatever you want, right? Try to make whatever money. You got to live within the system. It's like, don't feel ashamed for working within this system, right? And that's one thing I want to get clear is we live in capitalist reality. So we have to survive in capitalist reality. So it's like calling Henry Ford a hypocrite for using horse-drawn carriage to build the Model T factory. You're building a Model T factory. Model Ts don't exist yet, right? These cars don't exist yet. So you have to use horse-drawn carriage. You're not a hypocrite, right? So yeah, build your business. Do it in a capitalistic way. Hell, I'm doing it. Why? Because I have to compete in the system in order to change the system. How will I change the system? Well, when I make this money, I'm going to start creating cooperatives. And I'm going to take the knowledge that I gained from creating businesses to create more cooperatives. And then the more cooperatives I make, hopefully the more cooperatives they'll make. And then there'll be more and more cooperatives. And then people will start wanting to work for cooperatives. Then the cooperatives will have all the best employees, and no one's going to want to hire anybody except a cooperative because all the best employees work at a cooperative. And then next thing you know, the capitalists have to compete with cooperatives for the labor force to get real good labor, right? And then they won't be able to compete with that anymore. And so guess what they'll have to do? They'll have to offer what? Ownership in the enterprises that those employees help build, and cha-ching, we've won. So let's all start doing it, number one. Number two, shame all the people who think they're doing great by donating to anything other than creating cooperatives. There you go. I mean, basically. Yeah, pretty much. If they're donating to United Way or all this stuff, I don't know where that money's going. Maybe, but have they solved any problems? I don't know. If you donated to starting cooperatives, though, that will actually change the face of our economy for our brothers and sisters in America. And guess what? There is such a thing as American exceptionalism. The thing is that we're exceptional at is setting the tone for the future, right? Right now, we're setting a silly tone for the future. We're setting a tone for uncertainty and bullying. And also, I don't know, how would you describe how we're acting on the world stage? It's not good. I don't think it's good. I think if we change the way we handle capital and labor relations and our country started really taking off, guess what? It will set the tone for other countries. And if we said, no, you can't work with us in this, like you can't buy and sell in America unless your labor standards match our labor standards. We actually use tariffs and use embargoes to actually help the laborer. Guess what? Now the world will have to abide by our labor standards in order to play with us. Because guess what? People want to play with us. There's just too much of a buyer pool here. Too many consumers here. So who would want to be choked off from that? Nobody. So yeah, maybe we'll play isolationist for a little while, but you know what? Our American brothers and sisters are very ingenious, and we'll find our freaking way. We'll find a way, you know, and they'll have to create a clone army for whoever actually enacts this. But you know what? If the U.S. has to create its own currency, like the greenback or whatever, I think JFK was going to start his own currency possibly. For the United States to get off the Fed Reserve System. Hey, that's another thing. We got to get off the Fed Reserve System. Because how can you have a private bank working with our money? That don't make no sense. A private bank not accountable to the people is getting interest off of the people. What? Say what? No, let's not do that. Let's not do that. All right, so let's see what else is going on over here. Dale said, Dale's also said, what I'm asking is, how do you make this new math you're discussing work at the street level? It's not really new math. The math is the same. It's just a split out in the profit. So it depends on the size of the business. If it's a business that's really small and the profits really aren't moving around that much, then it doesn't apply to that so much. If it's a small operation with a very large profit margin that's heavily labor dependent, well, that's different, right? So it all really depends on the organization. And as far as creating rules about it, I don't know. I would probably make it based on the size of the organization. But let's talk about it. I don't know. And so again, it's not really new math. It's just a breakdown of the profits. So Dale Lynn says, the fact that it's illegal to be homeless, but not illegal for a city to allow you to be homeless is unjust. Yes, indeed. I agree with you there. Kate says, it's illegal to be homeless, question mark. Yeah, we have, sort of, in a way it is, but it's de facto illegal. Dale says it's illegal to be homeless. Public camping is illegal. Michael says, this seems like it has to be mainly a grassroots bottom-up revolution, but we know that there's always a micro-macro component in everything. How crucial is it that we get big money out? Big money has to be out of politics. However, this is the other part of shaming, right? So when somebody with big money, like Bill Gates, says, oh, I did all this to vaccinate kids. I'm like, hey, look, I don't care. How many cooperatives did you start? None? Get out of my face, right? Oh, I donated to blah, 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 blah. I created a foundation. Well, you created dick. I don't care. Shut up. Did you create a cooperative? If you didn't create a cooperative, I don't care what you did. If you gave millet and shoes to a bunch of African kids, well, guess what? You did nothing to actually solve the problem, right? You get religious organizations, you get non-religious organizations, you get all these people that are basically like not solving a problem. They are just as soon happy. There's a movie or a show coming out. I think there's a show with the who's a kid that does a Radcliffe that does the Harry Potter. I think there's a character that's like a shit shoveler or something, a cleaner of poop, and he cleans up after the horses. I feel like these charity organizations are these sort of like, they'll clean up the poop of not that the poverty, the people themselves are the thing, but they're wanting to clean up the poop of the horse instead of saying let's just let the horse live in the pasture where it can do whatever it wants. You see what I mean? They just as soon just keep the horse on the route and keep feeding it because it gives them something to do or something. I don't know. That's just, I don't see an actual solving of the problem happening in a lot of these circumstances. Maybe I'm wrong, whatever. If I'm wrong in those instances, yay for them, keep on doing it. But if anyone out there is donating a bunch of money or saying they're doing philanthropic work and they're not involving a cooperative, then they're not really helping anybody with anything. Basically is what's going on. All right, Brock Norris says, PSA for the end of your show, nearly any metro area in the country will have a small farm cooperative. If there isn't one in your area, anyone could set up a buyer's club for little to no investment of money. Support your local small farmers and homesteaders. 100%. And that's the thing. We have to, the fact of the matter is, people have to buy their way out of exploitation. They have to buy their way out into becoming a homesteader. And only a few people get a chance to do that. And there are some fundamental shifts that we could take in food production to not have to use grand swaths of land. We can do things like aquaponics, where we have a protein like fish and shrimp working together with food crops to create fertile and dense food production that doesn't require the same type of soil treatment and land mass that that normal current farming uses. And you can have municipal aquaponics parks. I guarantee if you build municipal aquaponics parks and the system of labor relations that I'm talking about, you'll have people volunteering their time to take care of those plants. You'll have people volunteering their time to take care of the fish and the shrimp, and you'll have people volunteering their time to cook it all and prepare it all. There will be like this somewhat a utopian hub in every little city, every major city, every city. All we got to do is create it, and it'll be cool. And the food can rotate. It could be different vegetables. It could be different protein. It can be different things. Each region could have their own kind of fish, and you could trade it and blah, blah, blah. How cool. It would be so cool. But yeah, we don't have that kind of thing. We need to start thinking about those types of projects. And you can imagine there's vendors out there, cooking up some yellow perch or some tilapia or some, I don't know, some crap that grows in your region that you're living in. Could be walleye. I don't know. Lake trout. And then it could be like some kind of giant prawn that's like from Thailand or some crap that we breed so that it can live in these aquaponic systems. And now you got fish and shrimp and some fresh veggies like all the time. Tell me how you're going to run out of ways to cook all that. You know what I mean? And you're living, and it's in a relatively self-sustaining situation that doesn't take up tons of land, and it doesn't pollute anything. You have an enclosed system, saves water, blah, blah, blah. All right. So there's a lot of things we could do. We got to look at this holistically, but we have to talk about it. That's why we have shows like this. It's a fellowship of truth, right? We are trying to get down to the bottom of it, even if it's uncomfortable to us, even if it feels weird or sounds weird. If it does, let's talk about it. Like Tim Minchin said, right? Opinions are like assholes indeed. However, unlike assholes, opinions should be constantly and thoroughly examined. So even if you like to constantly and thoroughly examine assholes, you probably shouldn't too long. But your opinion should be always open to that. All right. So Kate Crowley says, ooh, I see what you mean. Not directly. Michael says, of our politics, I mean, we want more democracy economically, but are losing it politically. And those we're losing it to are not interested in cooperatives, fairness, or justice. No, 100% it is. And remember, anytime someone wants to poo-poo socialism and whatever, I mean, usually they have some kind of weird idea. Like the thing I'm describing, in some sense, this is going to sound like an oxymoron, just like the oxymoron of state capitalism, right? Oh, that doesn't make sense. State capitalism? Yes. Like China, Russia, state capitalism. Who owns the means of production? If the state owns the means of production and the people are exploited, then that is state capitalism. That's what it is. If it's a collective in which the workers have direct democratic control of the workplace and equity ownership in that enterprise, then we're talking about socialism, right? So unless the government proxy gives all those guarantees, it's not socialism. It's some form of state capitalism. So I know it sounds like an oxymoron. What I'm describing as far as cooperatives, that's something known as market socialism. Where's the socialism component? The socialism component is equity in the enterprises that they help build and democratic control of workplaces. That's it. Look up the tenets of socialism, and that's really where it is. You could have workplace democracy. You could have city or municipal democracy or whatever. I mean, you could theoretically have a city-owned enterprise and the city votes, like JEA might be a city-owned asset, and the people in the city could vote for that thing, right? So there's levels to where the socialistic element of that enterprise interacts. And my thing is, let's make it a market level socialistic interaction, in that we have democratic control of workplaces and direct equity for the workers in those enterprises, within those enterprises. So it's not owned by the government and not centrally controlled, right? All of those arguments are straw man arguments that they put together to deflect from the fact that the labor and capital relations in this country and all everywhere have basically been what is the crux of the problem within our economy, and it has been ever since the beginning of it, but also since it still wasn't solved, even with the erasure of, well, not erasure, but abolition of chattel slavery. Okay, one last question, and then we are gonna biz ounce out of here. Michael Weingartner. Oh, wait, hold on. Dale says, illegal's still illegal. You don't have to go. You don't have to go home, but you have to go. Yeah, Dale, it's a de facto illegal situation. So it is not technically illegal, but it's de facto, or of the fact. You might as well make it illegal, because if you're not allowed to be anywhere, but yet you must be somewhere to exist in the world, then you're not allowed to exist, right? So if you're not allowed to be in the city property or the private property or any government property, or federal or any other form of government, then if you can't be there legally, then you can't be anywhere legally. So it might not be technically illegal for you to be homeless, but it's illegal for you to be here. So find your way elsewhere. And it's illegal for you to go elsewhere. So it's illegal for you to exist, basically, at that point. All right, Michael says, so what can we all do now, or at least soon? I would be more than willing to meet and figure out how to launch more cooperatives and to start garden anything. You don't have to answer that now, but let's talk. Okay, yeah. Okay, so a couple things. Number one, yeah, start a community garden. That's one way of, number one, bringing the society together and fellowshipping with other people. You'll never know. You'll be so surprised who's into gardening. It is something that transcends cultural, racial boundaries, religious boundaries, all of those things. So you'll meet a new friend, I guarantee it. If you start setting up that, there are some pretty interesting things. I know downtown Jacksonville, there's a couple community gardens popping up. I would really like to start doing, personally, I want to get into some more aquaponics research. So if you are interested in aquaponics stuff, do some research and share with a group, and then we can all learn from each other. I think it would be a dream of mine is to help start a municipal level aquaponics venture and see how that turns out, and get in and come up with a decent business proposal, so that it basically creates a self-perpetuating food bank for people. So if you can't afford food, you can come get the fresh food at the aquaponics park, and who knows, it might be so good that everyone's just going to go try to get stuff from the aquaponics park. So that, again, that will also change the face of agriculture, doing stuff like that. But yeah, what can you do next? Well, I think part of it's a slow game, but part of it's, really be, you always could share the word. It starts to sound religious, but being open to talking about these things, being in a position or learning enough to be able to have this conversation, to let people know, like, sort of articulate wage slavery. What is wage slavery? How do you sort of unplug that matrix thing, that jack out of their neck, and like say, look, the world isn't, you're not going to see the world in a better light necessarily just because you're wokey and you took the jack out of your neck. You're going to see it for the ugliness that it is, instead of this sort of lofty ideal that it's supposed to be. And that's okay. That's okay, because only through that sight are we going to lead our brothers and sisters through the fog, right? So we have to be aware of those things. Just support cooperatives. Try to start your own cooperative, and it's so hard to it's hard to describe that change. What's it going to be like in 10 years from now, or what's it going to be like if somehow, some way we can create tax code that says, hey, if you retroactively give your employees a ownership for the time they've already served, then maybe we'll get a tax break or something special. If we can start doing stuff like that, we'll start seeing a more immediate transformative effect on our society. We'll start to see society be more social again, not so social media, but now you'll have time. You'll have time to go show up to some event, time to go into the political realm, right? And start actually fixing this. Guess what? There'll be time for the American people to have the government be of the people, by the people, for the people, all of these things that it's supposed to be, right? But, one thing at a time. Patience always is the hardest part, but there are some ways we can talk about getting started now in transforming this system. And labor, if there's any way for you to affect capital and labor relations, really, that's where the big impact's going to be. All right, so you can hear the Sebrock Beats. Playing tonight is Underwater Telephone. We had a great conversation, a couple things here. Aquaponics resources and down with wage labor. That's right. As Frederick Douglass says, there is a experience demonstrates there may be a slavery of wages just a little bit less galling than that of chattel slavery, and it must go down with the other. So our first step to ending wage slavery is to ensure that our brothers and sisters are working towards equity somehow, some way, over time in the enterprises that they're helping to build. Anyway, I'll leave you guys on that, and you can always comment and let me know if you guys want to talk about some stuff for like next week and whenever. So until next time, peace out, and I will see you next week.